may recognize those 3 licks I just played. Turns out they all have something in common. They all use the pentatonic scale. So for today's lesson, we're going to talk about pentatonic scales. And this will be the first lesson in a longer series on pentatonics. So today's lesson will be very simple. We're just going to go over 2 easy ways to play a pentatonic scale in an open position. And then later videos will go more in depth on theory and different positions for the scales. Pentatonic scales are scales that have 5 notes. Let's do a quick translation from Greek to English. Penta means 5, and tonic means tone, which I don't have a hand gesture for, but tone is just another word for note. So thus we have a 5-tone or 5-note scale. Any scale that has a repeating pattern of 5 notes is indeed a pentatonic scale. But in this unit, we will look specifically at minor and major pentatonic scales. And perhaps, maybe towards the end, in another lesson, we will look at blues scales, which are hexatonic scales. So if we go back to maybe our geometry class in high school, can we guess how many notes are in a hexatonic scale or a blues scale? That's right, 6. Hexa, like a hexagon, right? Okay, so pentatonics. Before we get into how to play them, I'd just like to offer up some reasons on why these scales are important to play. The bottom line is that all scales are important, but the minor and major pentatonics are foundational to a guitar player's development. These scales have been used throughout the history of blues, jazz, rock, pop, reggae. Really any Western music, and even lots of Eastern music, uses these scales to come up with their melodies, the riffs, and even when you're improvising solos. Scales are also a musical way to warm up and practice technique on our guitars. They get our fingers ready, but also our brain ready for playing music. And pentatonics are some of the easiest scales that you can play on a guitar. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with 2 basic patterns for the minor pentatonic scale. Both patterns we will go over in this video are in open position, which means open strings are utilized and we're pretty much playing in the first 4 frets. And in reality, in these scales, we're going to be playing only in the first 3 frets. So we will learn E and A minor pentatonic. So without further ado, here is the E minor pentatonic scale. Let's break that down. So what did I do? I started on the tonic of the scale. Now, before I go through all the notes in the scale, the tonic is important. We talked earlier how the word tonic means note. That's in Greek. When we're speaking English and we're referring to the tonic of a scale, that is referring to the note the scale is named after. And it's also usually the first note in the scale that we play, or we call the first scale degree. Okay, so the tonic for the E minor pentatonic scale is the note E. The tonic for the G minor pentatonic scale is the note G. The tonic for the A major pentatonic scale is A. The tonic for C harmonic minor scale is C. Now, a lot of this theory stuff can go over our heads. It can be tricky. But for now, just think of the tonic as the note the scale's named after. And then how we figure out what the tonic is will require some deeper theory that I'll go over in a later lesson, okay? So back to E minor pentatonic. I'm going to start on the note E, which is the tonic. Then I'm going to play the 3rd fret on the 6th string, which is G. I'm going to use my 3rd finger for that. And then I'm going to play open A string. 2nd fret is B, 2nd finger. Then I play open D. Then I put 2nd finger on the D string, that's the note E, 2nd fret. And at that point, let me just stop there. At that point, I've gone 1 octave, right? I'm back on the tonic. So E, E, G, A, B, D, E. And you catch how there's 5 different notes. E, G, A, B, D. That's 5 if I'm counting, right? So I'm here at the octave, and let's just keep going. We'll do a 2nd octave, okay? So we're gonna go G, so we're just repeating those same notes now. That was the open G string. A on the second fret, second finger. B is the next note, that's right. Open B string. D on the third fret of that B string, that's using my third finger, using good hand position. We've talked about that in other lessons. Then the open E string. So I've reached the second octave, and then I'm just gonna go one note further just to kind of even out that string, okay? So 2 notes on every string in this case. That note was G. So G, so going backwards, G, E, D, B, A, G, E, D, B, A, G, E. All right, E minor pentatonic. This will not be the only time you hear me say this, but always play your scales ascending and descending, or play them up and then back down. All right, so as with most things on the guitar, we have fretboard diagrams that are very useful for learning scales. So what I'm gonna do really quickly is just kind of give you a brief overview on how to read these diagrams that should be popping up on the screen. What I like to do is I like to tell my students to hold the guitar like this, like look at it, like kind of like that, and you can have the diagram like kind of like this, so you're looking like that. And that way you're reading it kind of the same way, right? That's how it's written. So we read the diagram going down and then across. So you hit all the notes that are on a string, in like one at a time in sequence, and then you go to the next string, go down, go to the next string, go down, next string, down, okay? In these diagrams, it's not too complicated because there's only 2 notes on every string. So I'm going open, 3rd fret, open, 2nd fret, open, 2nd fret, open, 2nd fret, open, 3rd fret, open, 3rd fret. And that is what this diagram is indicating to us, all right? So I hope all that's feeling good for you. What I would do right now is I'd probably pause the video and I would just play that scale maybe like 10 times, up and down, slowly. Make sure you feel pretty comfortable with that. And then when you're ready, hit play, and then we'll go through the A minor pentatonic scale. So for the A minor pentatonic scale, we want to start on the open A string. This note A will now be our new tonic. We're in A minor now, okay? So the tonic is A. Then I'm going to play the 3rd fret on the 5th string. Using my 3rd finger, that note's C. An open D string, then 2nd fret on the D string, that's note's E. Open G string, 2nd fret, G string, A. Now, 1st fret to get C, because I just reached that octave, right? I did A, C, D, E, G, A. So now I need C again. 1st fret on the 2nd string. D is now 3rd fret on the 2nd string. And then I do open for E. And then G would be the 3rd fret. I could even get to A again up here on the 5th fret, but let's not get too crazy right now. So let me play that scale descending. Always go backwards. Now I didn't use the 6th string, but I could continue actually going down below that A, below that tonic. G, E. If I had maybe like a 7-string guitar, I could then do D, C, A and go even lower, right? But this guitar's got only 6 strings. So we just played the E minor and the A minor pentatonic scales, right? But another way to think about these scales is that we learned the minor pentatonic scale 2 different ways in an open position. One of them had the root on the E string, the other one had the root on the A string. Now that may be a little confusing right now, but that concept, if you can grasp that, that'll come in handy as we start to move the scales up and down the neck. All right, so before we go, I would just like to address some basic theory on these scales. I will go into way more detail and depth on the theory of this in later lessons, but very brief kind of overview for now. So just stick with me, I promise this won't be crazy. So let's go back and look at our E minor pentatonic. We played E, G, A, B, D, and then E again, right? So those were the 5 notes, or the 5 tones in our scale. E, G, A, B, and D. Now I want to look at the intervallic relationship between those notes. And I know you're going, what did he just say? Intervallic relationship? I'm referring to the intervals between the notes in that scale, okay? So in the last lesson on the caged chord series, I went into detail on the theory of how intervals work and what intervals are and what they're called. I will link below to that video, but here's a brief summary, okay? Intervals are a unit of measurement that tell us the distance between two notes. So in Western music, which is what we're playing today, a half step is the smallest interval. And a half step is just when we move up or down one fret on our guitar. That's one half step up, that's one half step down. Thus, a whole step is when we move up or down 2 frets, or 2 half steps. Okay? We also need the interval of 3 half steps for the pentatonic scale. We call this interval a minor third, but that can be confusing for some, so let's just call this interval of 3 half steps a whole plus half step. So now let's look at the intervals that are used to get from one note to the next in the E minor pentatonic scale. So we do E, open E string, and then we go up 3 frets, right? So 1, 2, 3. So that's that whole plus half interval, right? That minor third interval. So E to G, so we started with the whole plus half. Then we went G to A, so if I stay on one string, that G to A is 2 frets, so that's a whole step. But I can also just play A on the open A string instead of playing it on the 5th fret of the 6th string. And then I go up 2 frets to B, 2nd fret, right? Then I'm gonna go up 3 frets to D, but I'm just gonna play D instead of on the 5th fret of the 5th string, I'm gonna play it on the open 4th string. So I played E to G, whole plus half, G to A, whole, A to B, whole, B to D, whole plus half. And then D to E is a whole step again. So, what we have now is a formula. Here it is. Whole plus half, whole, whole, whole plus half, whole. If you follow that pattern of intervals, no matter what note you start on, you will get a minor pentatonic scale. So, to prove that to you, I will do the same thing starting on A, which we learned. So the A minor pentatonic scale, A, up 3 frets, whole plus half, yeah, C now. Then C to D, that's 2 frets, or play D here on the 4th string, whole step, D to E, whole step, E to G, as we had in the E minor pentatonic scale, is a whole plus half. Oh no, it's gonna work. Then G to A, whole step. So let's look at that again. A to C, whole plus half, C to D, whole, D to E, whole, E to G, whole plus half, G to A, whole. Boom. The formula works, and you can just kind of take my word for it for now, but it'll work no matter what note you start on, and we will prove that even further in the next lesson in this series, where I will move these patterns up and down the neck. All right, so that's pretty much it for today. What I recommend doing is practicing the scale slowly, up and down. Always go up and down. And then in the next lesson, we're going to start to move the scales up and down as the neck, as I have mentioned. And at that point, I'll give you some specific exercises to practice the scale, so you get a little bit faster and smoother with them. But yeah, hope you enjoy that. Hit subscribe, hit like. Appreciate it all. And wish you the best. Later.